Transportation, and I want to welcome you all tonight to discuss a proposal for Huntington Avenue in the Mount Vernon District. Before we begin, I would like to view some guidelines so that everyone can participate and get the most out of this session. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube, then linked to the 2025 repaving program webpage on the county's website. Microsoft Teams does offer a live captioning service. You can find that by clicking on the three dots and choosing Turn on Live Captions. Once the presentation is complete, we'll begin a question and answer portion during which participants will ask their questions aloud. The chat feature has been disabled for this meeting, so we will not be taking written questions. Please hold your questions to the end. If you're on the phone, we'll have instructions how to ask questions at the conclusion of the presentation. We also encourage you to submit your comments to today's meeting using the online feedback form, using the survey, a survey link that we'll include at the end of this presentation. We'll also take written feedback as well as a phone call to allow you to complete that survey. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce Supervisor Dan Stork from the Mount Vernon District to open this meeting with some brief remarks.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate that. And welcome, everybody. This has actually been a discussion point with the Fairfax County Department of Transportation for probably 5 or 6 years, something that they wanted to look at, thought we should take a look at as a community. And that's really what they've done. And I'm not putting any, this is really about a discussion with the community, the presentation. I don't feel strongly one or the other, which is why they're presenting it to all of us and to get our feedback. And then as a community, we can have further conversations to decide whether or not this is something we would want to consider further or not. So please listen, ask your questions. I will be on till at least 7:30. I have another thing I need to go to. I'm not sure exactly when I'll be leaving to do that, but I will be here for a good bit. And I know I see Peyton Smith on here as well, and I'm confident that he'll be available as the night goes on. And regardless, we'll have the information from your Q&As and we will, I'm sure, follow through on further conversations depending upon the feedback and information we get tonight. So with that, thank you, Zach, and I appreciate your work.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Stork. Alrighty, good evening. So here we're going to talk about the 2024 Huntington Avenue proposed safety project. So just to clarify one kind of key important piece of information, the Virginia Department of Transportation, which owns all the county streets, has not approved this project, and some elements may change as a result of their feedback, as well as, of course, feedback from the community. If this project were to be approved, we would likely implement it in the 2025 repaving season, so next spring, summer, etc. So we'll go through the project and then we'll go to Q&A. So Huntington Avenue, as the proposed area of the project runs between Richmond Highway and Telegraph Road. If you're not familiar with it, it has 4 wide travel lanes, which has encouraged people to speed over that 30-mile-an-hour limit, as well as encourage people to cut through from perhaps other places. There's some left turn lanes along the street at some intersections, but not others. There's some pretty narrow sidewalks, 5 to 6 feet wide typically, with a pretty narrow buffer, creating some unpleasant walking conditions. And of course, there are no bicycle facilities on Huntington Avenue. So I just want to give a little bit brief history and kind of explain some of the background of our projects, of the county's past plans for this project. So if for those of you who remember back to the early 1980s when the metro came to this part of Fairfax County, Huntington Avenue was widened from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. The idea behind that is it would serve this strong park and ride demand. We have that large garage along Huntington Avenue. But over time, we found that there wasn't as much parking ride demand as we anticipated. A lot of folks use North Kings Highway instead of Huntington Avenue to get to that park and ride. And we're trying to tailor the growth along Huntington Avenue towards more transit-oriented development. So apartments with mixed uses of such as retail and whatnot. And then we also have this really fantastic Richmond Highway or Route 1 bus rapid transit project that will probably further reduce demand for that park and ride, which is a key kind of generator of traffic along Huntington Avenue. About 10 years ago, our countywide bicycle master plan recommended buffered bike lanes along Huntington Avenue. And then about 4 years ago, we actually our county's comprehensive plan actually recommended a highway interchange at the intersection of Richmond Highway and Huntington Avenue. But the community recognized that the interchange was inconsistent with a more walkable and bikeable Huntington Avenue, and with the assistance of Supervisor Stork, as well as our other board members, it was actually removed from that county plan in 2020. Fast forwarding to May of 2022, the Mount Vernon Task Force recommended studying a road diet. And then in June of 2022, Fairfax County DOT developed this active transportation plan for the entire Huntington Avenue neighborhood. One of those recommendations was to study a road diet on Huntington Avenue. And lastly, we also are planning to install 4 capital bike share stations along Huntington Avenue, hopefully in the first half of next year. I just wanted to share the existing bicycle conditions right now from that 2022 Huntington Metro Rail Station active transportation study. So you can see there's some green lines here that are the lowest stress streets. These are typically your neighborhood streets, or perhaps larger streets with side paths. And then the highest stress level 4 are these orange streets. So Huntington Avenue, North Kings Highway, and parts of Telegraph Road are high stress streets, where we don't often see people riding bicycles. One of the things we've noticed with Huntington Avenue is we've had about 54 crashes between 2021 and 2023. Well, majority of these were property damage. We had some with some suspected, 18 had suspected minor injuries, as well as some had 3 suspected major injuries. We also had 2 pedestrian crashes, one at Metroview Parkway, as well as one at Richmond Highway. And we've had a number of rear end and angle crashes as well. And of course, I'm sure the supervisor's office could also attest to, we've heard long heard residents voicing their views about speeding and cut through traffic along the street. And just the example photo on the right is a bus stop next to the Huntington Metro Shopping Center. You can see we've got a pretty narrow sidewalk and just a little 2 feet of grass between you and the moving traffic. So one of the ways to solve these issues is to put the street on a road diet. And it's a pretty common treatment. We've done about 30 throughout the county. Road diets typically convert 4-lane streets into 2-lane streets with a center turn lane. While removing 2 of those 4 lanes reduces capacity of the street, adding that center turn lane adds a lot of that capacity back. And so we can use that extra width we often use that for bicycle infrastructure. You can look at, there are many studies that have proven the safety benefits for road diets for all users. And as a result, we're proposing to implement a road diet on Huntington Avenue during repaving. So I want to just briefly go through a couple improvements for folks who walk. So with a road diet, you only have to cross 1 lane of travel at a time. And there's space often in the median to wait for a gap in traffic. This eliminates the double threat crash type, meaning that someone will stop for you if you're trying to cross at the crosswalk, but another driver might not stop or try to swerve around that person and may cause a near miss or worse. We have a couple plans to make some improvements already to Huntington Avenue, some funded improvements. One is adding a pedestrian refuge island at Robinson Way, and then also adding a missing crosswalk at Fenwick Drive, which is near one of the Metro garage exits. Both of those would likely come after the repaving is complete. We also have a request for a refuge island at Hunting Creek. That's on our unfunded list. The road diet would likely make crosswalks east of Farrington Avenue eligible for rectangular rapid flashing beacons. And I've got an example here on the right over in Reston of a concrete island where people can cross one lane at a time and wait for a gap in traffic. And then they've got the little flashing lights that make people alert and encourage people to stop for people using the crosswalk. We also have a bus shelter planned at Hunting Creek Drive as well to kind of consolidate several stops. And then we're looking to try to add some crosswalks between Farrington Avenue and Foley Street, but it's a little bit challenging with the curb cut. So we're not sure if we're able to offer those on this particular project. I will say doing a road diet allows us to much more easily add crosswalks at a future date, though. And also, if you notice, there are a lot of people using the bus along Huntington Avenue. And so there's a lot of demand for people to cross the street. And another benefit for people who walk is that it moves the vehicles from about 3 to 6 feet away from the sidewalk to about 14 to 16 feet away. In the space between creates a nice buffer for people walking from that traffic. So there's also a lot of improvements for people who drive as well with road diets. And essentially that left turn lane really significantly improves safety by reducing 3 crash types. One's a rear end crash, since it allows drivers to move out of the traffic lane and provide a safe space to wait. Now there's an angled crash, so you only have to turn across 1 lane of traffic instead of 2. And then of course there's the side swipe crash. The other thing that left turn lanes do, and I mentioned earlier, but left turns kind of adding capacity back to the road, is essentially they remove those left turning drivers from that travel lane. And so you no longer have to stop and wait for someone to turn left. They'll just be out of your way and you can continue along. And then it also reduces speeding as well, since there's only 1 lane, and it discourages people from racing as 2 lanes of traffic will often do. And so I'm going to just briefly share one of the crash types is rear end crashes. You can see here there's a car in red turning left. There's a car here in blue braking. Sometimes when people are trying to turn left, someone behind them won't brake in time, and they'll rear end them. But with a road diet, this person in left has moved out of the travel lane into that center turn lane, and it creates the person in blue no longer has to slow down, and it significantly reduces the likelihood of that someone would run into that person. Another crash that can be reduced is these left turn crashes or angle crashes. So here a person in this red car is trying to turn left. They can very clearly see this person here in this other red car going the other way, but this car actually ends up hiding this other car behind them. And so they'll think that it's clear to make a turn, but then they'll see this other car behind them. Or they won't see that car, this yellow car behind them, and cause a crash. But by having this center turn lane, it's much more easy to slow down and stop and be able to see this person coming that direction. And same with this person also turning left. They can see the other car coming the other way and stop safely. And then lastly, there's the side swipe crash. And so oftentimes, people are impatient to get to where they want to go. They see someone slowing down to turn left, and they immediately try to change the lane, and they don't see, for example, this yellow car here. So this person driving this blue car wants to avoid this person trying to turn left in this red car, and so they immediately try to change lanes, and they don't see this person in yellow, causing a side swipe crash. But by having that center turn lane there, this person left can pull out of that flow of traffic, and these folks can kind of continue on to their destination. One kind of interesting feature with road diets is the traffic is a little bit more compact, and so you have when a light turns green coming the opposite direction, you'll have a long line of cars going past you. But once that line is passed, it's still pretty easy for you to turn left and get to your destination. There are a lot of driveways along Huntington Avenue. There are a lot of little side streets that don't have that left turn lane, and so this provides a significant benefit for folks trying to get home and kind of turn down those little side streets to get to their homes. Also, there's some pretty significant improvements for people who ride bikes for Huntington to road diets. And so in this case, a buffered bike lane would be provided, and that would create space for riders, a safe space for bicyclists of all ages and abilities. It will connect to the Mount Vernon Trail via the Richmond Highway side path down at the southern end down there. It also will connect to a side path into the Alexandria neighborhood, the Carlisle neighborhood in Alexandria via Telegraph Road side path, as well as some other points along Telegraph Road and Fairfax County along the side path. And then, of course, we're gradually building out this really nice recreational trail along Huntington Creek, along Hunt Creek. And so the proposed bike lanes would make it more easier for folks to be able to get to those destinations. We cannot propose such a major change like this to Huntington Avenue without thoroughly studying the traffic. So we did a study in the spring, and this is just a summary of the results at a high level. So prior to the pandemic, in 2019, Huntington Avenue had about 16,000 cars per day. It did drop down to about 13,000 in 2022. per the Federal Highway Administration guidance, streets with 15,000 to 20,000 cars per day are good candidates for road diets in some instances, and we should conduct this traffic study, which is what we've done. One of the ways that we can kind of mitigate delays and mitigate changes is to not propose major changes at the Telegraph Road and Richmond Highway interchanges. Is just try to, Richmond Highway intersections. Just try to keep things pretty similar to what they have now. And then one interesting thing we looked out to traffic from 2000 all the way back to 2001, and we found that it is kind of gradually declined since then. And you'll notice that even after the pandemic, it's still going down. Yeah, and whatnot. So we did, however, collect traffic volumes in April of this year to better to better match what the current conditions are. We've also looked at some of the development along Huntington Avenue. There's, for example, there's the Parker, the apartments across the street from the Huntington Metro are proposing a new building. Right now, but the work is they're designed to.
You're breaking up on us a little bit, Zach.
Reduce car trips is in ways that previous not.
We're getting very poor sound
with
you at this point, Zach. I don't know
if
there's some kind of connection issue.
Is that better? How is it now?
Okay, that's better.
Yeah, your video's frozen,
okay.
But we can hear you.
Oh, goodness, I'm sorry about that. I will, let me turn that off real quick. Anyhow, so we looked at development along Huntington Avenue. We don't see anything that we think would significantly increase the level of traffic along the street. And we also looked at the available capacity at each intersection at Richmond Highway and at Telegraph Road, and there's still a significant amount of capacity remaining, and whatnot. So I wanted to share just kind of the two intersection changes, the two major intersections along Huntington Avenue that we do anticipate some delays. And so this is down at Richmond Highway. And so a couple of changes we propose is if you're turning left from Richmond Highway onto Huntington Avenue, we propose to stripe out one of those left turn lanes. This is one of the longest left turn lanes along Richmond Highway. We found there's more than enough capacity to accommodate traffic. Same with it coming from Huntington Avenue on the east side of Richmond Highway. We would force folks to merge and turn right in order to provide one lane to cross. We also anticipate, per our traffic study, a 7-second increase in delay. That's an average across the entire intersection in both the AM and PM peaks. That delay is within the county's comprehensive plan guidance, as well as a memorandum of understanding that the Fairfax County has with the Virginia Department of Transportation. I did just want to share the green paint shows where the bike lanes are proposed to be, but that may be omitted from the final design. It's just a way to more easily show where they are along the map. And whatnot. So instead of having 4 lanes going to the intersection here, we would stripe one out and it would become just 3 lanes. You'd still have a double left turn from Huntington Avenue to get onto Richmond Highway to go north, but there'd be and you'd still have 2 lanes. You'd still be able to go use one of 2 lanes to cross the intersection as well. For peaceful bicycling, we'd anticipate they'd ride across to the other side here and then wait and then wait for the light to change, and then they'll be able to keep riding along the side path towards Mount Vernon, towards the Mount Vernon Trail. And then, of course, the other major intersection at Telegraph Road is we were also similarly proposing some minimal changes to mitigate delay. And so in the morning, we anticipate a 9-second increase in the morning peak hour, and then a 5-second increase in the peak hour in delay for the entire intersection. We're also proposing 2 stop signs instead of a free flow traffic that exists today. So right now, if you use Huntington Avenue today, there are 2 lanes that feed off, and neither of them have to stop. But what we're proposing is 2 stop signs, just because it's hard to. We want to be able to provide the bike lane through here, and so we need 1 travel lane instead of 2. And so the sight distances are also pretty poor for people driving as well. And so we think stop signs are a good solution here, but it is subject to VDOT approval, and we could end up with something else such as yield signs. And then if you'll notice here, there's an existing right turn only lane that we would stripe out as a bike lane. The right turn only lane doesn't actually provide a lot of capacity because there's already a right turn on red restriction at the intersection, and so it doesn't really add a lot, and so that's why we can take it away and not have a very substantial increase in delay. If you're trying to cross the street as a person walking, this would reduce that crossing distance by about half, and then we'd have a little bit of a reduction here as well at Telegraph Road. And I just wanted to share just kind of a concept of the proposed cross sections. And so this is the cross section of Huntington Avenue with a median, runs from Farrington Avenue to the intersection of Telegraph Road. There's 2 large buffer spaces. There's 2 bike lanes, 2 travel lanes, and a left turn lane. If this project moves ahead, we would consider adding a vertical barrier to the bike lane to make it protected, but that would be after the paving program is complete and subject to funding and agreement with VDOT. And then similarly, the section from Huntington Avenue with no median runs from Farrington Avenue to Hunting Club Road. There's 2 bike lanes, a buffer on either side, a travel lane in either direction, and of course a left turn lane. So it's a little early in the paving season, but if you have any paving related comments, you can submit those to my VDOT, .virginia.gov. Our repaving program webpage is fairfaxcounty.gov/transportation /2025 repaving and restriping program. We are accepting feedback through our online feedback form through through October 2025. October 25th, 2024. We really value your feedback. Projects such as this one cannot move forward without it. All feedback will be provided to Supervisor Stork to help make a decision as to how to proceed. This is the form. It's publicinput.com/V38861. You can also call us up and leave a voicemail. You can send us a postcard or a letter to the address listed here. And again, all feedback is due October 25th, 2024. And if you have a question that you're unable to ask at this meeting, or just a question about the project in general, you're welcome to email DOT bicycle programs at fairfaxcounty.gov. And now we're going to move to the question and answer portion. Please raise your hand located at the top of your screen next to the 3 dots. The moderator will enable your microphone and call on you to ask a question. When you're finished with your question, please lower your hand. Please unmute yourself when your name is called and ask your question or provide your comment. Please mute yourself after you've asked your question. If you're on the phone, please press *5 to raise your hand. And when you're called upon by your phone number, we'll use your last 4 digits. Please press *6 to unmute. When you're finished, please press *6 to mute yourself again and *5 to lower your hand. We can go to our first question.
Yeah, we can start with David, and I am allowing your microphone, so you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay. Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hey, Zach. You said something and it was really fast about the lanes being protected. So could you repeat that? And then secondly, could you address what is the potential for the lanes being 2-lane rather than 1-directional? Because like right now, for example, to get from where I live, which is in Rose Hill, to the Huntington Metro, I have to ride on the sidewalk down Telegraph Road. Then I have to again ride on the sidewalk down Huntington. And there is no safe way to bike from across Telegraph to Huntington without having to use a sidewalk. So I'm just wondering, like, what are the thoughts on two-laning the lanes and having them protected, and then how are people who live, I guess, west of Telegraph expected to access the lanes?
Okay, so I'll get to your first question. So when we do these kind of projects, we try to add a wide enough buffer space of at least 3 feet, so that we have an opportunity to add a vertical barrier in the future. It's something that a lot of other jurisdictions in the region have pursued. It's something that we've gotten a lot of feedback over the years for encouraging us to pursue. And so if this project were to go forward, this would be a really great candidate for that treatment. But that would have to be added after the project's complete. And I got to go back to the Telegraph Road intersection you're asking about. And so right now we have a large side path, as I'm sure you're familiar with, that people use.
Mhm.
And so we anticipate that folks, getting on the bike lane would ride along the side path and hop into the street here at this intersection, and ride eastbound to get to the metro. If you're coming from the west, we would anticipate that you would likely cross the street, potentially at one of the signalized intersections, or one of the unsignalized intersections. It's a little easier to cross one lane of travel at a time, instead of two at a time like we have now. So it'll be a little easier to cross the street, and then you'd be able to ride up to the intersection here. You can either use the walk signal to cross and ride across in the crosswalk. You could also merge into the travel lane and make a left turn like you're a car. And in terms of doing a two-way, I think you're asking about a two-way bike lane instead of a one-way bike lane on like one side of the street. I think is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. It's something we don't really have the shorter answer is it's a little bit more complicated in terms of a regular to do within the paving program. We have the space to do buffered bike lanes on either side, so that was kind of the reason to propose a buffered bike lanes instead of a cycle track, I think is the technical term for a two-way bike lane on one side of the street. We do have one in the county. There are others in other jurisdictions, but it requires a lot more work in terms of signals and a lot more things that we couldn't really do within the scope of the paving program. So this is why we proposed a buffered bike lane as part of this project.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to Anna next. And I just allowed your microphone, so you should be able to unmute.
All right, great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, cool. Yeah, so my question is about the section kind of between the Metro Kiss and Ride entrance and the Metro Access Road. There's currently a center median right there. So it looked like it's proposed that would be removed and replaced with a center turn lane. So one, I guess, is that correct? And two, would a crosswalk be added kind of right outside or near the Metro or Midtown condos to the Metro sidewalk entrance that's kind of on the it's not by the car entrance, it's the sidewalk entrance is like kind of the opposite of that, further from the light. So if you're coming from like towards Richmond Highway walking, you don't walk all the way to the light there. So a lot of people, one, cross from the Midtown condos, they stop in the median and continue to the Metro back and forth. And two, the two Rex bus stops that don't go into the bus loop at Huntington. Those are kind of major bus stops. So people are jaywalking across there as well. So one, people are finding refuge in the median. So I think there's a risk if that median is removed without implementing also like crosswalks there.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, so when we do repaving, we hardly ever touch the curbs unless we want to like add a ramp, an ADA ramp at a crosswalk. So the median is not proposed to go away wherever we have a median today. Yeah, that is I was chatting internally, and that is a need to add a crosswalk there. Unfortunately, adding a crosswalk during the repaving program at that location is out of scope of the repaving program. However, implementing the road diet does make it safer for people to cross as they're crossing today, because they only have to cross one lane of traffic at a time instead of two. We could potentially stripe a little extra space in the median for folks. And then it also makes it a lot cheaper and easier for us to come back later with a separate project and separate funding to add a marked crosswalk with a painted refuge island, or excuse me, with a concrete refuge island, like we've. Let me go back to the example here, like we've done here at Bluemont Way. So you have so at one point, Bluemont Way was 4 lanes in each direction. We were able to reduce it to 3 lanes in each direction, and that provided that space for that island to be added at a later date after the paving program's done. But thank you for your comment, though.
Yes, thank you. And we will go ahead and move on to Callie. I've allowed your microphone, so you should be able to unmute. Are you able to unmute, Callie? Still not hearing you, so we'll give it a couple more seconds and then we'll have to move on to someone else for now.
If you don't get a chance to ask your question, you're certainly welcome to email us at dotbicycleprograms@fairfaxcounty.gov, and we'd be happy to answer your question that way.
All right, in that case, let's move on to Emily. All right, Emily, you should be able to unmute now.
Good evening. I just want to start by saying I support this initiative, and I'm pleased that the county has done the research into creating a safer space for Huntington. One thing I did want to ask, though, is can you confirm that there is funding within the budget for this project other than the stated unfunded traffic island at Hunting Creek?
So if you've been out there before, Huntington Avenue is in need of repaving. And so the project would be implemented during repaving, and that's how the whole project would get funded. We're still working out kind of the details with the Virginia Department of Transportation to try to figure out how to implement that during that process. But yes, that we can confirm that the project is we have funding to implement the paint and the asphalt portion of the project.
Understood. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your question. We will move on to Bert next. I've just allowed your microphone, so you should be able to unmute. It's like you're unmuted, but we can't hear you speaking. Still not hearing anything. All right, yeah, still not hearing anything, so we can try coming back to you, Bert. All right, let's go back to Anna. Then, did you have another question?
Hi, yeah, a different topic question. And again, also to reiterate what Emily said, completely support the project. So it seems like a great improvement. But one question I had was just how would like bus traffic on Huntington work with the road diet? Because there are, there's, Metro bus and then a lot of Fairfax connector bus stops too. So just curious how that works with the 1 lane of traffic.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really great question, and you brought up a point I should add here. Today the buses stop in the travel lane, and so if you're trying to you have to stop and if you're driving and want to go around, you have to stop and change lanes to pass them. With the buffered bike lane, it will provide a large enough space that the bus will be able to pull almost entirely out of the travel lane, and so you'll be able to be able to pass them pretty much in your own travel lane if you're driving. So it makes it a little easier for drivers to pass buses, and it makes it a little bit safer for the buses to actually pull off to the side and reduce the risk of being rear-ended. So in terms of change to bus travel and moving stops around, there wouldn't be any changes. We would leave all the signs at the bus stops in place, but does significantly improve it for drivers and for bus drivers and bus passengers.
Great, thanks for that.
Thank you. And then we will move on to Sonia next.
Hey, thank you, Sonia Brehe. I just want to say I think it's great you guys are proposing to do this road diet. It's a perfect opportunity to repurpose this road space, make it safer, easier for people to walk and bike and get to transit. This is a transit-rich area planned for TOD, transit-oriented development, and is totally appropriate to better balance these modes and prioritize that bike ped. So I'm glad you're sort of starting to build out some of the recommendations from that Huntington Metro Bike Ped study. Glad to hear you're thinking and have space for the vertical separation, like the bollards. I think that's super important. So I'm glad to hear that. And I think overall this is great. I do want to ask, like, what do we need to do to actually use green paint for the bike lanes? I assume this is a VDOT issue. It really does help visibility, especially through those big intersections, to give a pathway for cyclists and for drivers to understand where to expect the cyclists as they're crossing like Richmond Highway or Telegraph. So I would actually recommend figuring out how we can add that nice visual that Zach was showing. So anyway, thank you so much. This is great. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, so green paint is something we've long been interested in. It's not currently within the scope of the repaving program, so they'll cover white paint, they'll cover yellow paint, and I'm not sure what other colors are used, but they'll definitely color those two colors. But VDOT has to maintain the green paint after we've implemented it, so we have to figure out a way to convince them that green paint is not a significant maintenance contribution to their bottom line, as well as find funding to implement the green paint, likely after the rest of the paint is done. That's typically how it's done elsewhere, is they'll do the white paint first and they'll have the green paint added later. So if this project will go forward, we'd have the opportunity to potentially implement that after kind of the white and after the asphalt and after the green paint is, or excuse me, after the white paint is down. But right now it's a maintenance. It's mostly a maintenance concern from VDOT, as well as being able to provide our own funding to actually implement it. So it's kind of those two challenges.
Thank you, Sonia. And we will go to looks like a phone number, a 443 number. I've just allowed your mic. And then you'll need to hit *6 to unmute.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is Callie. I called in since it would not let me unmute myself on Teams on my previous try. I think this is great. I just had a question, and it's not pertaining to like Huntington Ave per se. And I admit that I may not be completely up to speed with all of the data you've published, but I'm wondering if you have looked at the possible impact that, the work may have on the surrounding area. I live on North Kings, and it has become an absolute nightmare between, the constant traffic and the speed at which people travel. And I'm just curious, if there's anything that's been looked at that and anything kind of possibly in the works for that as well. Because I remember, Zach, like you saying something about a 2-lane road, kind of like racing. And that's exactly what happens. I can't even open my windows anymore because it's just such a nuisance at all hours.
Okay. Well, thank you for your persistence, and I'm sorry to hear about that with your windows. So North Kings Highway is a good example of a road that essentially has too much traffic for us to road diet, and so we would not propose one on that street. I do know off the top of my head there's a crosswalk upgrade we're proposing in front of the elementary school. I think it's Mount Eagle Elementary School. Um, but there aren't any significant changes planned to North Kings Highway.
Right.
As
Okay.
far as I
But
know.
you don't foresee this having a significant, impact on the surrounding, like people trying to potentially, like cut through or, and obviously I would not, I want these changes to be made. I'm just curious, if I should also be mentally preparing myself for, kind of even more potential chaos.
No, it's a very valid concern, certainly. So the way that we kind of mitigate impacts beyond Huntington Avenue is we don't really we try not to adjust we don't cause significant the way that we mitigate the impacts is not to cause significant delays on Huntington Avenue itself. So that folks who still want to use it can use it, and they probably won't notice that there is a delay increase of 7 seconds here at Telegraph, or excuse me, at Richmond Highway, for both the AM and the PM peak hours, and there's a 9-second increase in the AM and a 5-second increase in the PM. But most drivers probably won't notice that, and so they'll probably continue to stay on on Huntington Avenue and not to try to divert over to North Kings. And so that's why we don't think there will be significant impacts beyond this street, because we want to be able to provide this potentially provide this facility, but we don't really want to, of course, don't want to make it at the expense of folks nearby.
Right. That's great to hear. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. Next, we can try Bert again. I've just allowed your microphone. I'm still not hearing anything if you're trying to speak. Yeah, if you have a question or any feedback, as Zach mentioned, feel free to submit that to us if you're still having technical difficulties, but for now we will have to move on. Next we'll go to Mark, and I've enabled your microphone. So you'll just need to unmute.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for doing the presentation. A couple questions. First of all, I'm completely in favor of this. It's needed. I ride a bike a lot, and Huntington is definitely a risky proposition. Question on the quantity of traffic if the road diet is done. A number of people in our community association have asked about making left turns from the side streets that are not controlled by lights, or making left turns to them when they come home from work. And they were concerned with that. Right now, there's a lot of traffic in rush hour, and what happens if the 2 lanes become 1 lane? So do you anticipate the actual quantity of traffic being maintained or less? And what response do you have to that question?
Thank you for the questions. Yes. Yeah. So one of the interesting features of road diets is your traffic is a little bit more compact, and so since you only have 1 lane in each direction, and so for example, the light at say Fenwick will turn green, and you'll have a row of cars that will pass you if you're trying to turn out one of the side streets, and you'll have to wait a little bit longer than you do today for that to go by. But then it goes by, and then you have your gap in traffic that you can pull out. So, for example, if you're on a side street and you want to pull out, you can actually pull into that 2-way center turn lane that we propose in the section without medians, and then merge into the traffic going the other way. So that makes it a little bit easier to get out. And then, of course, you do have to wait a little bit longer for that platoon of cars to come down the street. When that traffic light turns green, you'll be able to find a gap once that goes by and make your left turn. I've done it on some other road-dotted streets, and you kind of notice it a little bit, but after a while it becomes pretty natural. And you also have that safer space to wait to make that left turn too. You're not trying to guess which, you don't have to worry about a car being hidden by another car, and trying to judge the speeds of two cars coming at you. You just have one car coming at you, and so you can kind of, it's a little bit safer and easier to make that turn, albeit perhaps a little bit longer.
Okay, thank you. My other is just a point from the westbound Huntington to the northbound Telegraph, where you propose eliminating a right lane in favor of the bike lane. And so that's correct. So once that actually area where you have people trying to make left turns onto Telegraph goes straight onto the intersection that the ramp that becomes North King, and then the right turn as well, all that's controlled by the light, that becomes quite crowded and extends back quite a ways when it's busy. And eliminating that right lane might actually make it so that the delay would be greater than you anticipate and cause people to speed, run lights, etc. A suggestion I have, and I know it's not in the budget because it's a repaving, is to move the sidewalk, since it's an empty field there, and then also move the bike lanes so that those two lanes could be continued. And I know that's not possible with the budget, but I'd like it to be kept in mind that that empty space right now might be better used in doing that. And that's it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for the suggestion. Yeah, and it is something that this is why we show this graphic in particular and show the delay is, it is an intersection that we study quite a bit to make sure we got right, and to make sure we don't have delays that are significant backups, and whatnot. So we do anticipate a 9-second increase, which in the morning people are trying to get onto the Beltway. We anticipate that little bit of an increase there, and a little bit of an increase in delay in the evening as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, let's move on to Ben. I've just enabled your mic. You'll still need to unmute yourself. Not hearing anything. All right, for now, let's move on back to Anna, and then we'll try Ben again. Great. Anna, you should be able to unmute.
Hey, yeah, one more question. So if this project is approved and moved forward with the road diet design, does the county do any kind of like follow-up study or like review after the paving is complete to like see how the impacts on like actual traffic conditions, like if there's any unexpected delays in places that kind of exceed that, guidance limit and stuff like that?
Potentially it's something we can look at. And we do try to model things out enough so that we don't, we have enough, have a little bit extra capacity intersections and whatnot to kind of mitigate, potential impacts. We have, for example, Lawyers Road was road data a number of years ago, and there was a follow-up study afterwards, and I think it was feedback form even that community could weigh in and provide their input to see how well it was working. But we don't really have like a formal funding set aside to go back and essentially redo the modeling and the traffic counts afterwards. It's kind of a more of a, if there's an issue, we'll certainly take a look at it for sure, and we'll find funding to make a change if we need to make it. But there's not like a pot of money all set and ready to go for that.
Okay, yeah, just wanted to understand if there's like major issues that like things just don't work in certain like intersections, that there is some kind of follow-up. It's not just pave it, paint it, and walk away.
Yeah, oh, most certainly there. Yes, if there, I mean, I should add too. I mean, this is just paint and asphalt. It's not, we're not. It's not unheard of for cities to eliminate, essentially go back to the old roadway configuration. It is pretty expensive, and it requires a lot of public consultation, of course. But it is, isn't out of the complete realm of possibility that could happen.
Great, thank you. We'll try Ben one more time before you wrap up. Great. Oops. All right, Ben, I've just allowed your microphone access, so if you could try to unmute again, it's at the top right corner of your screen. Okay, still not hearing anything. So if you were not able to ask your question today, Zach has the instructions on how to submit feedback to us either online, through the phone, or by mail. And we're happy to answer any questions that way or take any additional feedback that way. But if there are no other questions, we can wrap up.
And I just have one question for you and Zach.
Oh, yes.
We have the HATS study that we've done, and I know and then what that is, the Huntington area traffic study, which is to look at the whole area around Route 1. And was this the analysis you've done? Is it connected with that? Have you assessed it in relation to what HATS recommendations came up with, or can you just maybe you or Zach advise how that fits in with that?
Yeah, I will have to get back to you on that. To make sure that this fits within that. I mean, I will say that the way that the way that we propose with the delays, we don't anticipate significant increases in delay. So therefore, it should significantly impact other studies. But we'll absolutely take a look at that and get back to you. Thank you for the question.
Okay.
Okey-doke. This concludes our meeting on Huntington Avenue in the Mount Vernon District. A recording of the meeting will be available on the county's 2025 repaving page in the next day or so. Thank you all very, very much for your very thoughtful questions. And we really appreciate you joining us tonight, taking the time to participate. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.